You are looking at the one thing standing between you and fresh eggs every single morning in January. Not a heated coop, not a fancy breed, a simple 9-watt light bulb. And if you've ever watched your hens stop laying the moment the days get short, you already know the frustration. 6 eggs a day become 4, then 3, then 2, then nothing. But the reason has almost nothing to do with temperature. It's a gland on top of their head, counting minutes of daylight. And once you understand how to work with it, instead of against it, winter becomes just another laying season. Silas knows this better than anyone. He keeps a small flock in his backyard, not a farm, and 3 winters ago, his hens stopped laying completely. That sent him down a path most chicken keepers never take, because the real answer isn't in the feed store, and it isn't in the breed catalog. Silas started asking the question most chicken keepers skip. Why does a hen stop laying in winter in the first place? It's not the cold. A hen's body can handle freezing temperatures. The real trigger sits right here on top of her head, the pineal gland. This tiny organ counts every minute of daylight that hits the back of her eye. When the days shorten below 14 hours, the gland sends a signal to her reproductive system. Shut it down. And that shutdown isn't a flaw. It's a survival mechanism that evolved over thousands of generations. Laying an egg every day drains a huge amount of energy. In winter, when food is scarce and chicks would freeze, the hen's body chooses survival over production. She redirects her reserves towards staying warm and growing new feathers. That's why 6 eggs a day become 4, then 3, then 2, then 2, then nothing. Silas learned this from a poultry manual written in 1947, back when people still treated chickens like living creatures instead of egg machines. The manual explained exactly how much light a hen needs, not just a bulb, but a precise number of hours. 14 minimum. 15 is better. 16 is the ceiling. Go past 16 and something breaks. The gland that drives the spring-lay cycle gets confused. Instead of ramping up, it shuts down entirely. You lose eggs in March and April because you pushed too hard in December. That manual was the first thing that actually made sense. So Silas walked out to his coop with a 9-watt bulb, a downward reflector, and a $7 timer from the hardware store. He hung the light at 7 feet, set it to come on at 4 in the morning, and waited. 2 weeks later, the eggs came back. Not as many as summer, but steady. He thought he'd cracked it. Then a cold snap hit. His water fount froze solid by 9 a.m., and 3 of his best hens stopped eating. The hens that stopped eating weren't sick. They were dehydrated. A chicken can't hydrate from ice or snow. They need liquid water to swallow feed. When the fount froze solid, their crops emptied and their bodies pulled moisture from wherever they could. Egg production stopped overnight because a hen's egg is nearly 75% water. No water, no eggs. Silas started changing the water twice a day, once at sunrise and once in the late afternoon. On the coldest mornings, he brought a second fount from the house, already filled, so the birds could drink while the frozen one thawed. It worked, but the eggs didn't come back to the level he'd seen after he installed the light. Something else was missing. He started tracking everything. Number of eggs, hours of light, what he fed, the outdoor temperature, the coop temperature. And the data pointed at something he'd completely ignored. Breed. He had what the feed store called production reds. Good enough hens, but not built for winter laying. Then he found a study from a university extension program that tested 16 breeds side by side through an Ohio winter without supplemental light. The top producers were not the most expensive or the rarest. They were the ones with the smallest combs. Plymouth Rocks, Wyandotte, Australorp. Hens with big floppy combs lost too much body heat through that exposed skin and shut down earlier. The small combed birds kept laying weeks longer, and one breed, a Canadian bird called the Chantecler, was designed specifically for this. No wattles at all. A cushion comb so small it doesn't protrude, and a body thick enough to store fat through the coldest months. A Chantecler hen will give you 4 eggs a week in January without any artificial light at all. Silas ordered 6 pullets the next day, but breeds take months to mature, and his coop was full of hungry hens right now. So he looked at feed. Most backyard keepers buy a bag labeled layer feed and think the job is done. The label says 16% protein. That's for a hen in peak season, with access to bugs and forage. In winter, the bugs are gone, and the hen is burning calories just to stay warm. She needs more protein, not less. 20% is the winter target, and not just any protein. Methionine, an amino acid found in sunflower seeds, fish meal, and legumes. Silas added black oil, sunflower seeds to the afternoon ration, a handful per bird, and mixed a higher protein crumble into the morning feed. Within 10 days, shell quality improved and egg size crept back up. But here is the thing about winter feeding. A hen's metabolism runs hottest at night when she's digesting. If her stomach is empty at roost time, she spends 12 hours of darkness burning muscle instead of feed. That's why a handful of scratch grains at dusk isn't a treat. It's a furnace. Carbohydrates, like cracked corn, digest slowly and release heat through the night. Silas started scattering scratch in the run about an hour before sunset. The hens scratched for it, filled their crops, and went up onto the roost with full stomachs. The coop never got above freezing, but the birds didn't care. They had an internal heater running. Then something else showed up in his tracking data. On days when the coop bedding was thin, egg production dropped. On days when he piled fresh pine shavings in and let it build, production held steady. He'd stumbled into the deep litter method by accident. You start with 6 inches of bedding and add more every week, never removing the old. The manure breaks down slowly through microbial action. That process generates heat. Not a lot, but enough to raise the floor temperature 8 or 10 degrees above the outside air. When the composting kicks in at 12 to 15 inches deep, the bedding itself becomes a heat source, and the same microbes kill pathogens, so the hens stay healthier. Silas let the litter build to 14 inches by mid-December. The eggs kept coming. By early January, he was collecting 4 eggs a day from 6 hens. Not summer numbers, but fresh eggs, free. While store eggs hit $5 a dozen. His breakfast cost him a handful of sunflower seeds and the electricity for a 9-watt bulb. And he thought he had it all figured out, but that was before the fox came. The fox came on a night when the temperature dropped to 8 degrees, the kind of cold where the air hurts your lungs, and every sound carries twice as far. Silas found the first hen at dawn, feathers scattered in a straight line from the coop door to the tree line. The second hen was gone entirely. The third was still alive, huddled under the roost with a torn wing and shock so deep she wouldn't eat for 3 days. Losing birds to a predator is a different kind of failure than watching egg numbers drop. When a hen stops laying, you can blame the light, or the feed, or the breed. When a fox gets inside the coop, there is no one to blame but yourself. Silas walked the perimeter and found the entry point instantly. A gap under the hardware cloth where frost heave had pushed the soil up just enough to create 2 inches of clearance. 2 inches. That's all a fox needs. He spent the next 3 days rebuilding. He buried the hardware cloth 18 inches deep instead of 6. He added an apron skirt extending outward from the base of the run. He replaced the simple hook latch with a carabiner that a raccoon can't manipulate. He installed a motion sensor light that clicked on when anything larger than a cat crossed the driveway, and he ran his first electric wire, a single strand, 5 inches off the ground, connected to a plug-in charger rated for predators. When he finished, his coop was no longer just a place for hens to sleep. It was a fortress, and the hens that survived that night became the core of his winter, laying education in a way the manuals never covered, because those birds, traumatized and cold, still laid. The Plymouth Rocks he'd added in the fall were producing 4 eggs a week each. The barred rock hen, the biggest of the flock, laid a double yolker on the morning after the attack. 112-gram egg, the kind of egg that barely fits in a carton. Here is the part nobody ever tells you about winter eggs from a backyard flock. They are not uniform. They are not predictable. Some days you get 3. Some days you get 1. Some days the eggs are so small you laugh when you find them. Some days the shells are paler than usual. Winter eggs are chaotic, and that chaos is the honest reality that the hatchery catalogs never mention. They'll sell you a bird that lays 300 eggs a year. They won't tell you 240 of those happen between March and September. Silas started tracking by hen, not by flock. He painted their legs with color bands. Red for the Rocks, blue for the Australorp, green for the Chanteclers. He noted which hen laid which egg, and the data told a story the feed store had never mentioned. Age mattered more than breed. The pullets that hatched in April and started laying in October kept producing straight through December and January. Their systems were fresh. They had reserves. The 2-year-old hens, even the winter hardy breeds, slowed down more. They had already been through 1 full laying cycle, and winter was their built-in rest period, whether you gave them light or not. This is where most backyard keepers make a decision that backfires. They cull the older hens in the fall, replace them with pullets, and expect uninterrupted eggs. But those pullets hit their first winter before their bodies are fully mature. If you push them too hard with light and high-protein feed, they burn out by the following summer. Silas decided instead to run a mixed-age flock, half pullets, half second-year hens. The older birds taught the younger ones how to use the roost, where to find the warmest spot in the coop, when to come inside at dusk. The younger birds kept the egg count stable. The older birds contributed when they could. The flock average, tracked across 130 days from October through February, was 3.6 eggs per day from 8 hens. Winter eggs, not summer eggs. A steady, honest number. And then he compared his costs. The 9-watt bulb cost him $1.80 per month in electricity. The black oil sunflower seeds added 3 cents per hen per day. The deep litter bedding was waste pine shavings from a cabinet shop down the road, free for hauling. His total input for a month of winter eggs was under $12. A dozen store-bought eggs was running $4 to $5. He was producing 5 dozen a month for less than the price of 2 cartons at the store, and he knew exactly what went into every single egg. No washed-out shells from stressed hens in a commercial barn. No eggs that had been in cold storage for 6 weeks. Fresh from nest box to pan, same day. But there's a catch, and this catch is the reason Silas almost quit in February of his second winter, when a week of sleet and freezing rain trapped him in the house, and the eggs started freezing inside the nest boxes before he could collect them, because winter doesn't care how much you've learned. It will always find a new way to test you. The sleet lasted 4 days. By the second morning, Silas found 6 eggs in the nest boxes, and 4 of them had split wide open. The yolks inside had frozen into amber marbles, perfectly preserved, completely useless. He stood in that coop at dawn with sleet stinging his face and seriously considered quitting. Not because he couldn't solve the problem, but because he was tired of solving problems. The light, the water, the predator proofing, the feeding ratios. Every time he fixed one thing, winter found another. And then he remembered the fox. He remembered standing in the same spot 2 winters earlier, looking at feathers scattered on snow, and he realized something. The fox didn't beat him. The frozen water didn't beat him. This was just one more thing winter was testing. So he picked up the good eggs, left the frozen ones for the hens to eat, and walked back to the house to fix it. The fix was not another gadget. It was a schedule. He started collecting eggs by 9 o'clock every single morning, no exceptions. On days when the sleet or snow trapped him in the house, he accepted that a few eggs would freeze, and he budgeted for that loss. That acceptance, the willingness to lose 10% of his winter eggs to the weather, was the hardest part of the entire journey. Because when you measure success by perfection, winter will always beat you. When you measure it by whether you have fresh eggs in your pan on a February morning, winter stops being an enemy and becomes a partner. By his third winter, Silas had a routine that ran on autopilot. The light timer clicked on at 4 in the morning, giving the hens exactly 15 hours of daylight. A 20% protein crumble hit the feeder at sunrise. At noon, a handful of black oil sunflower seeds per bird. At dusk, a scoop of cracked corn scattered in the run, so the hens went to roost with full crops and an internal furnace burning through the night. The water fount was changed at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., and when the temperature dropped below 20 degrees, a heated base kept it liquid. The deep litter sat at 15 inches by January, breaking down slowly and raising the floor temperature 8 degrees above the outside air. The nest boxes were lined with 6 inches of fresh straw, fluffed every morning. He collected eggs twice a day, 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., and brought them straight inside from 8 hens, all winter hardy breeds with small combs. He averaged 25 eggs a week from November through February, 5 dozen a month, more than his family could eat, enough to give away. But the number that mattered most came from his records after the third winter. He had run 2 groups of hens side by side. The pullets he gave supplemental light all winter, and the second-year hens he let rest naturally with only 10 hours of daylight until mid-January. The rested hens produced fewer eggs that winter, about half as many. But the following spring, those rested hens laid at nearly full summer capacity, while the pushed pullets started molting early and dropped to 2 eggs a week. The rested hens laid for an additional 14 months before their production finally declined. Over their lifetime, they gave Silas more eggs by 50. The winter rest was not a failure of management. It was an investment. This is the honest truth that almost nobody prints on the side of a feed bag. You can have fresh eggs all winter from a handful of backyard hens, but you will not get summer numbers. You will not get perfection. Some days the shells will be pale. Some days the eggs will be small. Some days a frozen yolk will remind you that you are not in control. And if you can accept that, you will have something better than an endless supply of eggs. You will have a flock that knows you, that trusts you, that walks through the snow to meet you at the gate because you brought warm water and a handful of sunflower seeds. Silas wrote down every detail of what worked and what didn't, the exact breeds, the feed ratios, the timer model, the way he buried the hardware cloth, 18 inches deep, and bent the apron outward so the fox could never dig under. I have put it all into one place. The link is in the description, but stay right here, because what Silas told me after his third winter changed the way I think about every animal on my homestead, and it might change yours too. Silas told me that the hens taught him something no manual ever did. Winter isn't a problem to solve. It's a partner that tells you exactly what your flock actually needs. When the days shorten, a hen doesn't quit on you. She tells you she's been working hard enough, and if you listen, you'll learn how to give her a little light, a little extra feed, a little warmth in the bedding. Not to trick her, but to support her. The eggs that come are not the point. They're the proof that you paid attention. If that way of thinking makes sense to you, then hit subscribe. There's a whole homesteading system built on this kind of quiet, practical work, and I share every piece of it right here. And if you want the complete winter laying guide that Silas put together, the exact breeds, the feed schedule, the light setup, I've placed a special offer in the first pinned comment. Just click through and you'll have it in 5 minutes. I'll see you in the next one.